With me now is Graham Richardson. Richo, let's talk about this payment today to those affected. Obviously, it's means tested. It's an emergency payment. David Littleproud, the Minister, will join me next hour to talk about it. But it's not really a surprise that they've done this, given it's a government decision to shut down, to lock down. People need to be supported through it.
If a government is going to stop you going to work and earning your wage that supports the family, well, they can't just leave you and your family starved. They've got to do something to help you out, and I think it's good to see they're doing it, but I hope it doesn't have to last too long.
The way they're doing it as well, though, saying it's got to be a Commonwealth-defined hotspot. In this scenario, with regional Victoria coming out of lockdown, it is aligned to what the Victorian government is doing. But I guess it's a way as well to say to the states, you might lock down the whole state, but if it's not a Commonwealth-defined hotspot, we're providing support only where that governs or where that's relevant.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I don't blame them. Obviously, the states will always try and take as much as they can, but you don't need it beyond where the real problem lies. So I'm sure that it'll work itself out. The states will have a little crack at expanding the areas and seeing if they can get a dollar under the lap somewhere, but the Commonwealth will be as vigilant as they can. Frydenberg's pretty good at that sort of stuff, so I think it'll work itself out.
I spoke to Professor Brendan Crabb just before the break from the Burnett Institute, and he was quite sanguine about the vaccine rollout. He's encouraged by the fact that there's been more than 1 million in the last 10 days and expressing the view that hopefully this scare in Melbourne, we hope it is going to be only a scare resolved this week and within days, that scare might shake people out of their complacency. What's your view, Richo?
Well, it's shaken me. And that's, I mean, I'm your average bloke, so I think it's a good thing. I hadn't had the shot. I've now rung the doctor and made an appointment, so I'll get it next week. And I needed to do that, and I wish I'd done it sooner. So I think as many people as possible ought to get the message.
When you've got another scenario, though, say people that need to take time out of work, low-income earners and so on, does there need to be a greater incentive to say to people, OK, make the effort, go and get it done? Because there are a lot of people who don't want to, first of all, take time off their job to go and get it. Secondly, risk getting sick if they've got kids to look after and that sort of thing. People that won't be motivated necessarily just by doing the right thing because they can't be motivated by it. No,
but it shouldn't be too big a deal to go and get it. I mean, I don't think it's going to interrupt employment terribly. It certainly shouldn't. You know, if you get on a queue, you want to make sure the queue's not too long, and you can organise these things these days to get it done. As I said, I'm just going along to my doctor and having it done. You can get it done in a number of ways, but you've just got to get it done, and you've got to motivate yourself to make the time and make the effort.
Yeah, and certainly there's also the prospect that once you get to a critical mass, you know. We've got now close to 5 million people vaccinated. Once it gets up to 10, 12 million, those that might have had doubts can see that it's fine, that the risk is minuscule, and if we want to prevent further lockdowns, that's the course of action that needs to be taken.
I reckon you're pretty thick if you haven't worked out the risk is minuscule already. I think there's enough evidence to tell us that. So if they're saying they don't think there's enough evidence, they're only trying to avoid getting the jab, and they ought to be getting a kick in the backside and told to just get on with it. Look, there is no reason not to do this. Period, full stop, amen, just get it done.
Now, Richo, the broader political week this week, where are things at in terms of your overall assessment for Labor? They're still ahead in the poll, certainly the Newspoll, in most polls at the moment, but Andrew Clennell, we were talking about it earlier, he thinks it might be a Newspoll mirage where really it's the government that is in the dominant position at the moment.
Well, it's a funny thing, you know, Newspoll over the years has had its ups and downs. In my view, this is a down. I get no sense anywhere that I go that people are crying out for change. You know, let's get rid of ScoMo. If that's happening, it's missed me entirely. So I don't know where this comes from. I don't know who they're interviewing. All I know is that I don't believe it for a second. I think for certain the government's still on top. And I don't think they're on top by a huge margin, Kieran. I think that, you know, Labor's still in the hunt. But certainly as they round the home turn, you've got to say that the leading jockey is definitely ScoMo.
Yeah, absolutely. It was interesting recently, just in the last couple of days, a very optimistic view was put to myself and Andrew earlier in the week about Queensland for Labor. But then talking to some Labor people from that state, they sort of chuckled at the idea that Labor would be picking up any sort of substantive presence in Queensland, that right now people are differentiating between state and federal, and the government the coalition is still dominant there.
I think they always differentiate between state and federal. And I tell you what, I'd like $1 for every time I've been told that Labor's going to pick up seats in Queensland over the last 40 years. I've listened to it so often. It just doesn't happen. So if anyone wants to put some money on that, give me a call. I'll be in it.
It's like those seats, the one that I hear, you know, almost every election, Boothby in Adelaide. It's always, Labor's a chance, but they always fall short, Richard.
Oh, always. And of course, how many times have you been told Peter Dutton was going to get beaten in Brisbane? I mean, I've been told that I don't know how many times. And he's got a margin of 2%, and it just stays there every election. And Labor has made no impression on that 2%. And so even when they get 4% in the seats around him, they still don't get 2 in his. So there are some quirks in the system, obviously. They don't all go with the swing. And so you've always got to be careful in any event, even when there are polls and you think they're good ones, you've got to be careful to note that they are never, ever right across the board.
Finally, your thoughts on the dramas in New South Wales for Labor. How do you see how it's all played out?
Well, I'm disappointed in Michael Daly. He's had his go. He should be giving a free run to Chris Minns to enable us to get a good start. I'm very disappointed in him as a person. I think the Labor Party's been pretty good to him. He should have been a bit more generous to the Labor Party in return.